Okay, I'm back to tell you the list iterator. One more iterator is there, which is available for the lists, which can navigate the list from start to end in one direction and end to start in the reverse direction. Before that, or before I conclude, before I start with the list iterator, I would like to say that for each loop runs an iterator loop behind the scene. What you do in for each loop? In for each loop, you do it like this. You have this particular colon shouldn't have been there. I'll correct it when I'll be sending the PPT to you. For student, colon student list, that means refer to a student floating reference which refers to student type objects in the list student list and do what with each object? Print. So the for each loop uses iterator behind the scene, that is iterator interface, and the concern generation of iterator for the student list and navigating across each element, etc. See, the Java compiler converts for each syntax to iterator syntax. It is just the convenience of the programmer for which you will be using the for each loop. But remember, and you have convinced also, that you cannot modify collection using the for each loop. Using iterator you can, but how, that we'll see later. Before that, just get the hang of using that has next and next. We'll do the removal using the iterator reference afterwards. Now, list iterator. List iterator behaves exactly in the same way as the iterator. Only advantage is it has got bidirectional possibility of traversal from one end to the end and from the other end to the beginning. Okay, how to generate the list iterator? Initialization. It is a generic interface. E is the element type. Suppose you wish to navigate across a list of students, then declare the iterator like this: list iterator student s list iterator equal to student list dot list iterator open close parenthesis. It returns a reference for the student list iterator. A list iterator for lists allows the programmer to traverse the list in either direction. Modification of the list is possible and you can do some more things, but that later. Only thing is that you have to remember you cannot do modification using for each loop, but using iterator you can do that. Using iterator as well as list iterator. Going ahead, the next method returns the element that the iterator is passing. That means element E type. When you use a list iterator string, the return type of the next method is string. When you use a list iterator book, the return type of next method is book. These two are picked up as it is from your book, Big Java early object. You can refer to the list iterator part, you will find this over there. In general, the return type of the next method matches the list iterator's type parameter, means E. These are the possible methods which you might use. Out of that, we are just going to use in the code has next method, has previous method, next method, and the previous method. See, the object gets replaced by the E type in next method call as well as previous method call. The remove method we are not going to use, and even the add method we are not going to use, because this add method will complicate the usage of list iterator. You should be familiar and have enough practice, then only you can use that. Otherwise, you should be familiar first with the navigation. Forward direction, reverse direction. Going ahead, code with the list iterator. The code with the list iterator is, this is the list iterator declaration. You have while the list iterator has certain next elements, this is true. What to do? Print. After this small this small while loop gets over, see, this while loop just has this statement into it. So once all the details of the student list get printed, where will the list iterator be? It will be at the end of the list. So from the end of the list, you can traverse back using the method has previous. Remember, has previous method, the iterator interface does not have. So if you want to bring the iterator interface back to the beginning of the list, then you have to re-declare that. You will see that in the code. I'll show you. I'll highlight that. Now this is the second while loop. S list iterator dot has previous. So with reference to the present position of the S list iterator, is there a previous element? If the answer to that is yes, or if this boolean returns true, then all the previous elements will be printed. This is exactly what we'll be seeing. Okay? Yeah. Thank you. I am directly going to the code. Okay. Now, before we start with the code, I was referring to something. See this S iterator equal to student list dot iterator. This redeclaration I have done to bring back the S iterator position to the beginning of the list. If I don't want that, I will not do it. Okay, this is one thing. And now from this statement onwards up to the closing of this brace bracket, those two small while loops are there. I'll bring my breakpoint over here. We can also see how the list iterator will show you the next elements and the previous elements in the debug type view. Okay, list iterator in angle bracket student S list iterator equal to student list dot list iterator gives us a floating reference, while S list iterator dot has next returns true. You are going to print all the consecutive next elements. When this becomes false, you are going to have a dashed line. When the S list iterator goes to the end of the list, that is after the last element is present, it resides somewhere there, you will check whether there is any previous element to it. If the answer to that is yes, then it keeps on printing the previous element through dot previous method. Again, this S list iterator dot previous will return a student type reference. Okay, so let's run. That's via debug. Okay, let's look at the student list. You have first, then you have next, then you have a next after it, then you have a next after it, and then finally you have null in the next. So this is the elaboration. This is previous with respect to all of them. So this via this previous part you are going to go up, that is from end to the start. So I'll collapse this again. Okay, now let's do a step over. List iterator gets initiated. Last returned is null. Next, yes, the first element is the next element in its site. So what will be the next element? The next element will have an ID equal to 31, which is a linked list element which is of the type student. Going ahead, does it have next element? Yes, the answer to that is yes. So it is true. It goes inside, it prints. See the next changes. It has reached up to the last. Now after the last part, it gives you a dash line. See, the S list iterator is at this particular position 45, not as the S iterator which is at 41. So this address is different, and that is the end address. When we run the next part as previous, yes, it prints, it prints, it prints. Finally, the first element is printed and things are over. So with this, we terminate, and this is how you could go via a list iterator in forward direction and in the reverse direction. Thank you.